Okay, well, welcome everybody. Happy to see you all here. You might never have heard of extended events and just got triggered by, hey, another data mine session. Perhaps you heard something of it. It's an introduction of it. So let's see how far we can go today. My name is Peter Kruis. I work as a consultant for Monin IT, which is also located in Belgium and part of the Kronos Group. We help our customers with their databases, mostly Oracle and SQL Server, but also other platforms like MySQL, Postgres, etc. This can be in a role as an MSP, where we take care of the monitoring, security, always on, etc., or in the role as a partner assisting or doing projects where you need help with. Currently, we are recruiting entry-level, media, senior. If you are interested in a talk, don't hesitate to contact me or any of my colleagues. Also, if you are in the open source databases like Postgres, we definitely would like to talk to you. But now, where are we going to talk about? Extended event. I do a lot of consulting, and when consulting, I see people most of the time don't know about extended events. And when people need to see what is happening under the hood, people still use the deprecated SQL Profiler or Trace or whatever you want to name it. I think it's a very useful feature of SQL Server to see what actually is happening. And the basics can be very valuable to anyone working with SQL Server. And I think it's a great addition in anyone's toolkit, just like, for example, Query Store, which is also a very good practice to know how it works. In this session, I will focus on on-premise. However, extended events also will work on Azure, so on managed instance and Azure SQL DB. Both also have extended events. Managed instance kind of looks like Azure SQL DB, is it within your database? So that are slightly differences within. Let's talk about extended events. In 2008, it was created as an alternative for Trace and Profiler. Before that, the only option to see what was actually happening, for example, what queries are running, what looking and blocking is going on, you needed SQL Profiler. And to be honest, I have put production companies down with just pulling up my profiler on my client PC, opening it, and there it was down. Production stopped, and everybody was not happy with me. Luckily, I wasn't the only one, and Microsoft decided to create the extended events as a powerful and especially also flexible way to see what is happening. It is built again from scratch, not as a side product, and it's highly extensible. And not as a side product is what I mean. The SQL Profiler was built next to SQL Server, so it hooked into it. It grabbed the data and started filtering, for example, client side. There you have a lot of overhead with grabbing all the data, sending it over your network, etc. And extended events has been built in the core, so it starts filtering much more early than Profiler. However, 2008, the first version was, let's say, it could have been better. And therefore, I think the adaptation was very slow. Therefore, also Profiler, some clicks, and you already have it started. You have your Profiler running. And most of the time, you don't have the impact of putting some things down. In 2012, you see the development a lot. The development continued. They created a GUI where in 2008 we needed XML extracting in your SQL queries. I'm not a hero with it. A GUI was added, and within that GUI you can see what is happening, what it's doing. You can group, you can filter, but we will come all back on that. And you can see it in my slide. For each version after it, new events were added. So currently in the 2025 public preview, we already at almost 3,000 possible events to track within your SQL Server, where Profiler itself is a little bit kept behind. Another good benefit of extended events is that it is server-side. So your data can be stored. So also your junior can open your extended event, which you have provided to him, and he can see the results from it. Also, we will demo it in a short time from now. Some cool new events in 2022. To be honest, I haven't looked into the new events for 2025, except the numbers. But some features which have been added in 2022, which might be useful, and I think some definitely are. For example, the query anti-pattern. So it sees when a non-optimal query has been written. For example, when you have implicit casting, you are writing a select statement with a where with an integer value. Your table is a varchar value and it implicit cast your whole table and therefore has an anti-pattern. Or a query aborted. Why has your query been aborted? Has it a timeout? Has it been killed? Etc. And several other options are also added in 2022. Well, I talked about Profiler. There are some differences between it. I think the most important one is extended events is still under development, or it's not under development. Of course, it's production ready, but it kept on evolving where SQL Profiler only has 180 events. So for example, when you want to track things happening on your Azure, it will be a lot harder with Profiler. Want to see what query store events triggered? You can't see it in your SQL Profiler. However, you can see it in extended event. However, Profiler, even I sometimes start it, especially when I still have some SQL Server 2008. Some still are in use, unfortunately, and then I would definitely advise to use Profiler, or you are a hero with XML. And also the building replay is not supported currently in extended events. However, there are other tools available, also open source, to make that happening. So enough sheets for now. Let's go to Management Studio. I have it in SQL Management Studio 21 currently. Also, I have 20 open here. So I have a fallback route when my 21 version isn't doing what I want, but normally that should work. Let me open the chat if there are any questions until now. Not yet, so that's great. If there are any questions, don't hesitate to shoot them while I'm talking, put them in the chat, etc. Okay. 1 minute, let me go to this. Okay, so extended events, where can we find it? I am connected with a SQL Server. In this case, it's installed on my local machine. And when we open Management, we can find here extended events. When we open that one, we have sessions. And when we open that one, I have a full list. Normally, on a new SQL Server, you won't have a lot of them. You have some defaults. For example, the always on health is there mostly disabled when you're not having always on. The system health is there by default. And I think also the telemetry X events is also there by default. So how does it work? When we want to create a new one, we just press right mouse button on sessions and we have the session wizard and we have new session. I never use the wizard because I think it has the focus on the wrong parts of it. And the new session does what it needs to do. So let's open it for now. And it will open a pop-up where we firstly can give in a session name. So let's name it my session. So my next scripts will also run. And here we can choose a template if we want to. Here are the profiler equal events. So if you want to say, yeah, I have this one in my profiler, I use it all the time, but you convinced me I'm going extended events now, you can choose one also here. And it is exactly the same as your profiler would have done. And also some other defaults are there. For now, we will keep it blank and we will just craft our own session. Then we have the schedule. We can start it at server startup. So that means when your server shuts down, it can be your server or it can be your service, and it comes back online, it immediately starts grabbing your data again, which can be a benefit if sometimes after patching you have several extended events. For example, you want to track who connects, who does the query anti-patterns, and it's kind of shocking if you need to enable it by hand or by script each time a server has rebooted. So this can be done at startup. We can start it immediately after we press OK or after we skip this. We can watch live data. I'll come back to it. But I think the most cool feature of it also is causality tracking. I will demo it in more detail. But what it does is, for example, you have a stored procedure and you fetch your stored procedure call with RPC completed. And you also see your statements. And on Profiler and on Extended Event, there we have an event for, and that is your SP statement completed. Then both of those items will get the same GUID, so you can see what actually belongs to each other. And especially on busy systems, that can be a great benefit because, yeah, queries run at the same time. And you would like to see, hey, this statement belongs to this. It took this time to run it. It has this reads, etc. So this is the first screen. Let's go to events. And here in events, we have a very large list of items where we can filter on. Let me resize this a little bit. So all are, or most are categorized. You have some channel, you have packages, you can filter on it if you want to. You can also just use search if you know what you are looking for. And where are you searching for? That's also what you can give in here. So I know the name. Okay, then I can do, for example, RPC completed, and I know what it is. However, when I don't know that, and I'm going to look for a procedure, well, then it will find it whatever we want to have. So for now, let's add an RPC completed. Let's add a SQL batch completed. And we can also do a statement completed. So we have 3 events configured now. The RPC completed is mostly when using a stored procedure, for example, with SP execute SQL, or when entity framework does it queries. Most of the time also RPC completed will be there. Then we have SQL batch completed. SQL batch completed is an event, for example, when I run a query through SQL Management Studio or through an OLEDB connection. So it is slightly different, but it's 2 ways how a query can be executed. And my SP statement completed is when the RPC completed or the batch completed executes a stored procedure. Within that stored procedure, we have different lines which are being executed, and each line is a statement. And when that statement has been completed, it will also be tracked with this session. Let's go to configure, because now we have fetched or configured the events. But what are we going to see? Here we have a full list of actions with additional data. Some might have some overhead. For example, if you would like to see the query plans, it might be a little bit overhead what it does to your system. So always enable these kind of items with caution. The same, of course, for event fields. The one who you can't check are there by default. So for my RPC completed, by default, I see how long does it do. It is in microseconds, where Profiler is milliseconds. So keep that in mind. If you see 1000, don't be scared. It isn't 1 second yet. That it's 1 million where you want to look at. The same for your logical reads, your output parameters, etc. For now, I leave the statement on because I want to see what is happening. For the statement completed, I have an object ID. It can also see it like a trigger, fetch my object name. It has a little bit of overhead, so it depends on your situation if it is handy for you to enable it. For now, I can just do it because I'm on a local system. For the batch completed, we don't have statement, we have batch text. So that's kind of a small difference. So we will have two separated columns in our result, one with statement, one with batch text, and only one is filled. But I think that was the same in Profiler as well. Then we have filter. When we are going to filter, we can choose for, hey, I would like to see everybody from a specific application, a host name. I only want to see something what's happening within a specific database, a user, etc. So here you can filter. This, definitely use this, because it will even make your extended event have less overhead, because it doesn't need to continue with fetching that data. I won't do any filters for now. For the global fields, let's check some interesting ones. And what can be quite frustrating is I need to click it and then go to the next one and also click it. Well, another option I can do is just shift click it. Now we have them all three, and now we can enable it for all threes. And what you also see near the sign here, it's one for each, because for all the ones I have enabled one field. So I have now enabled the host name. When a client connects to your SQL Server, the host name will be fetched. Yes, you can spoof it, but it's all we have. And there are more items which I usually like to have. Let's see, where is it? My client app name is also one I usually want to see. Which application is doing some stuff, which application is executing a stored procedure. Currently, I'm working on a large migration where no one has its application name configured. So that can be quite a hustle. Then you always see .NET SQL client, adapter, etc. And then you still have no information, but most of the time, or at least when people do have their application name within their connection string, you can see it here. I've written a blog post over that, so make your DBA happy, or if you are the DBA, give it to your developers or the people who are creating your connection strings, and it can make your life a little less worse when maintaining the databases. So for example, here we have the query plan, hashes, etc., the session ID. We have the SQL text, so you can also see what is the most upper level of it. I'm not going to use it for these events. For now, I can leave it this way. So let's go back. So we have three items. We have configured it. And here with the filter icon, when we have configured a filter, let's do it anyway for one. Duration is 1, ain't gonna happen. Then also here you see a sign, oh, the RPC completed has a filter on it. So we won't fetch all. And deleting it, it's just pushing it over there. Okay, next up is data storage. Where SQL Server 2008 had less options, currently we have a lot more. So we have the sync target, we have the event counter, the event file histogram, pair matching, and the ring buffer. Your ring buffer obviously should better be used for your data and your query plans. Personally, I very like my event file, and I also have some use cases for my histogram. Event count sometimes, and the other ones, to be honest, I have probably never, not never, but have used them very often. So for now, let's create an event file. The event file will also be saved on disk, and you can just copy that event file and open it in your Management Studio to see your results. So that can also be very handy. So how am I going to name it on my server? How large can it be? 1 gig is nice, but 1 gig can contain a lot of data, and perhaps you need it. But what I prefer to do then is split it up with megabytes and make different items, because when I have lots of smaller files, I can just copy only one to investigate, or I can remove sums without having one large file, which is still being used, so I can't delete it. So for now, let's make it only 100 max with rollover. So when they are all 5 full, it starts on the first one again. And I also have the option to change the location of it. On advanced, you can change properties here. For example, you don't want any event loss, not recommended. No, obviously, because then your queries will fail if your extended event doesn't work. Most of the time, or always, I don't use it. And like most other screens within Management Studio, you can press script to create it in script, or just press OK to edit. And now I have here my session. It is disabled because we can see the red square over it. So let's see what the script actually looks like. We have the create event session. We are going to add it on the server. This is slightly different on Azure, especially on Azure DB. You don't create it on the server. You are going to create it within your database. I am going to trace my event. I've chosen 3, my RPC completed. I had my statement completed, and I had my batch completed. And within that, I'm going to collect it with my actions, and the triggers I selected was the client app name, my host name, and my session ID. I'm doing that for all 3. I'm going to write my results in a file named my session, whatever it is, and I have causality tracking on. Let me scroll to my node. I have everything, I think. Yes. Now it's time to start my extended event. I can safely press right mouse button and do start session, or I'm going to use SQL, alter event session, my session on server state is start. And I should remove my typo. There it is. And this also should start. So yeah, my commands executed successfully. And when I refresh my sessions and I search for my session, here it is. My red square has been removed. Now I have 2 options. I said it is being written to a file on disk. So when I press the plus button, I can see here my event file, and I can open it. Yeah. And now I can see it already has captured 45 events. However, as you can also see, my timestamp is quite a long time ago. My guess would be I already have a session named my session for one of my previous sessions, but that doesn't interfere with us at the moment because yeah, the file already existed. Nobody has deleted it, but it will just add data when queries are being run. When I open the event file, I see historical data. What is already within your file? So new files won't, or new files, new events, new lines won't be added when I run a certain workload on my laptop. Then I really need to reopen it again. Yeah, that's a difference with Profiler. I can see things live over there. Well, we can also see that here. I can go right mouse button, but that's on the session itself, not on the object. And then I can say, watch live data. And here we can see data popping in if anything was running on my machine. Let's make some. So cool. It opens on my wrong screen, always. That's quite a workload. But here it is. So we have here now SQL batch completed, and you can now see it popping in. For now, I have 45 events captured, 52. And so it starts popping in some statements, some batch completed, etc. Let's look into the results. Let me close all my CMD windows, which triggered some workload. And what do we see? We see name and timestamp, and meanwhile some events are still popping in because it's asynchronously. And here we can click it, and in the details part we can see my application or my host name or my what is happening. And then I can click my next row and my next row and my next row. Yeah, bummer. That's not what I want. I would like to see it in my screen, in my grid, because I would like to filter on it. I would like to see what are my largest duration queries. We have two ways to do that. The first one is right mouse button, show column in table. So now we can see their client app name immediately for all items. And I can do that for the rest of the items I want to see also. Another option I can do is right mouse button, choose columns. And choose columns has the same fields, however, it has it combined. Because, for example, when you have a weight locking event, you have different events with different field and values, especially different fields. So you have a weight resource, etc. And you don't see them here, but you will see them here. Here is everything you ever captured, at least ever, within this, in this case, 75 events. So here we have two fields which are added. It's the GUID and the sequence. And I hope it's a bit readable. Olivier, is this also a bit readable? Because I have a feeling this is quite smaller than the other ones.
It is quite small, yes.
Let me... Then this works better, I think. Yep. So we have a GUID and we have a sequence. And these two fields are only added when we have causality tracking on. So let's also add those two in the grid. Well, duration, logical reads, my object name. But yeah, I also would like to have my statement. So let's do my statement. And for others, I had my batch text. So when I do that now, and let me zoom out again, then we see a lot of filled in batch text, and there's the statement not included. And when we come to other ones, here is my statement included and not my batch text. And yeah, that doesn't work for me. Let's go back to choose columns. Let's remove them both by pressing the Shift or Control button. Let's remove them and let's create, let's go zoom in a bit, a merged column. So we press New and we are going to name it Query. And I'm going to include the batch text and the statement. I press OK. I press another time OK. And now this will be combined in one. So, and for the statement completed and for the batch completed and also for the SP completed, we can see them all just in one column, which can make your life better when you need to go through the result. So will it keep this? Well, let's see. When I double click event file, it still has only name and timestamp for my previous. So I do need to configure this each time. But what I last year found out, let's stop my data feed. It will still collect, but it won't go through my my live feed anymore. When we go in the top, let me zoom in. We have extended events. We have display settings, and I can save it. And let me zoom out. Go to my presentaties query store. Well, let's go to extended events, and let's name this my another cool GUI. And when I now go to my other event file where I only have those two, I go back to extended events, display settings, open recent or open, and I named it my other. And now immediately all my columns, including my merged columns, are being done and being visible for you. What this also will contain is your filters. Your filters, yes, we also have an option to filter. So my live feed is already in there. I already had the data. I already have fetched everything. It's still completing, and I had some filters. I didn't add one in my session, but I can also filter later on. For example, I want to filter everything like we did, but now I only want to see items from, for example, my super cool application. We have the option to go to filters, and here we have kind of the same view as we had in the other one, except that we also have a time filter option here. We can enable it, and then we can slice to whatever time you want. The GUI is a little bit counter intuitive, or I think it works pretty bad with the time filter, because it only is being filtered for the already loaded events. And now I have only 134. But what if you have 100,000 events? It first needs to load in your screen, and then you can add the time filter. At least that's what it was. I haven't played with it in 21, probably enough. Perhaps it's better. But then here we can choose some field, and also I can filter on my query. So also my merged columns are applicable for filtering on my client side. Another way to do is within your grid. I can just press mouse button and do filter by this value. So it will immediately fill it for you. And when I press OK, only my super cool application items are visible. So I see it's a stored procedure, what I am going to execute. I don't have an object name here because it's just the execution. The statement, I have no idea, but I see it took a very, very long time to run. Let's see why that happened. Do we have a bad statement? And that is where your causality tracking comes in and is very useful. We talked about, we have two fields. We have a GUID and we have a sequence. So the GUID, you can see it, it's different for each of my unique calls. But let us filter on this GUID, and let me remove my client hostname for now. Oh, I don't have anything else within it. That's a bummer. Let me clear all filters and let me check for another one. Otherwise, I probably have misconfigured it somewhere. But here I have one. So here we have one. For example, I have here my SQL batch completed, which executes DBO test procedure 5. And this one has the same GUID. And here we can see, hey, it's a select top 10. And this select top 10 took 1.5 million, yes. And my total statement took 1.5 seconds. So this must be the reason why my batch completed was so slow. So here we can find and pinpoint related things. And here it can be useful. We have a batch completed or an RPC completed in combination with your statement. It can also be used for track wait statistics, which wait were completed for a specific batch. So if you are encountering a lot of waits, for example, locking or blocking, and you want to see, hey, why is my query slow? This definitely can be a great tool. So on top, I have the clear all filters over here. And when I do that, all my filters, again, client side, are being removed. Another one is grouping and aggregation. So let's go to grouping and let's group it by application name for now. And now I can see all my queries. Some don't even have an application in it. We have something being done with SQL CMD. Yeah, the Management Studio. And with aggregation, I can also say, hey, yeah, what's our average duration? And sort it in descending order. So my SQL CMD has on average the worst queries, which makes sense because I wrote them. When I click it open, I can see the numbers and I can see especially again those items. Another one is, yeah, okay, but here it isn't sorted on duration yet. When I click on the header, I can also sort it here and here. My work has been done, or at least I can start with tuning my procedures. So that's how the GUI works. There are also other items. So when I start the data feed again, because I'm still in my live data, my screen will be cleaned first. So keep in mind, if you want to keep your data, yeah, you have it in your event file, but when you press play again, it's empty again, and you need to run your workload again and again and again if you need it. I think that are the items which I was going to show about the GUI. Yes, are there any questions for now?
No, there are no questions at the moment.
Then we can continue. So this is basically how extended events work. And it is quite useful, but I've stressed that out, I think, a lot. On my GitHub and also on another site made from Grant Fritchie, he also is a great resource for extended events. But let's see some practical uses of extended events. I have several which I want to show. So let me close this one. Let me close this one. Let me close this one. Let me do the deprecated 2008 stuck piece later. So one of the items mentioned was deprecated values. So I'm a legacy developer and I am still going to use the text. However, Microsoft already mentioned it multiple times, text is deprecated. There is an option within SQL Server 2022 to see the event deprecation announcement and deprecation final support. So if you are not sure if you are able to upgrade your SQL Server because you don't know if anything is in use, you can run this event session. You can run it. Let me go to the live data. And let's execute this one. It still works. And on my live data, I now have fetched, hey, what are you doing? You are using a data type text and text or image. It will be removed in a future version. Avoid using them. And this is what you can use. And it contains the message, so you know it is being used. However, it also contains the exact SQL. Like, hey, yeah, you created a stored procedure. Don't use your varchar or nvarchar, whatever you want to use. There it is. Another option we can do is blocking. I think everybody has encountered blocking problems at least once when working with SQL Server. So one resource gets blocked by a specific session and someone else needs to wait for it. But can we also see that? Yes. However, it is kind of best effort. Microsoft has a deadlock spinning wheel, and it checks, are there any deadlocks each 5 seconds? And when a deadlock occurs, the deadlock spinning wheel will go faster. So for example, 2.5 seconds. So your next deadlock will be resolved faster. When no deadlocks are found anymore, it will slowly grow up to 5 seconds again. Based on that spinning wheel, it can detect blocking. We do need to configure our SQL Server. We need to say this blocked process threshold is being configured to 5. You can set it lower, but don't, because Microsoft advises not to. And what this will do is when that deadlock spinning wheel runs, it says, do I have blocking longer than configured value? So in this case, 5 seconds. You can miss some blocking with that, because when the spinning wheel runs and your blocking is, for example, at 3 seconds, it doesn't show up. And your next deadlock run, it is gone already because it finished 2 seconds after the previous one. So it took 5 seconds, but it didn't display it over there. However, I think it's still very useful. What this does, when that spinning wheel encounters blocking, it will trigger a report. So let's go to my blocked process extended event session. And again, I have 2 events. One is the blocked process report, because configuring the setting will only make sure that event will be triggered. But when nobody listens to it, well, it's like me talking to my kids. Most of the time they don't listen. So you do need a listener to make sure, it adds some value. So let's configure it to 5. It doesn't work for now. Let me go to show. And it was already configured 5. Okay, so let's create a new query window. Let's copy our statement. So what we will do over here is we use the Stack Overflow database, and I'm going to update the users table where ID is -1. And I am going to set our creation date. On my other window, I'm going to do the same, but I'm going to set the age. And now let's make it also use Stack Overflow. And now it runs. And SQL Server is very patient, more patient than I am usually. And when I go to my extended event, did I already had it open? No, let's go to watch live data. And now each several seconds, a blocked process will pop in. So now we can see, hey, we had blocking. What was our blocking? Well, we had a begin transaction and it was blocking another transaction. So your statement probably has been finished, but yeah, you didn't do anything. So we have, in this case, our blocking process and our blocked process. And here it's a simple one-on-one relation. In reality, you can have multiple blocked processes, which can be related to each other. And then it can still be quite a puzzle, but it can give you very good context. So let me walk this one back. This one immediately also finished. And now I don't receive any new more blocked processes. The next one, the anti-patterns. And to be honest, I've did this session a few times, and each time it didn't pop up. But most of the time, I think because I was too impatient. So let's first start my watch live data, and then execute my anti-pattern. What have I done to make sure this is an anti-pattern? I have a table, the badges table, and as you can see in the definition, my user ID is a varchar. But what I am going to do is I am going to filter it with an integer. What SQL Server will do here is it will have the table and it says, you are giving me an integer. I am going to, in memory, change all the user IDs to an integer, and then I will give you the items for 164, which yeah, it doesn't make sense because casting this one would be more efficient, but yeah, it isn't in the precedence list that way. So let's execute it. And here you can see, hey, yeah, my query, okay, it ran only 1 second, but probably it could be a lot faster when I am using the right index, etc. And now it immediately say, hey, you have some anti-patterns. For this one. Oh, here it is. So let me resize it a little bit. So here we have a type convert preventing seek. So hey, I'm going to convert it and therefore preventing my index seek. My application is my management studio. This is my plan. This is my query. This is my query hash. And this is actually the query where I need to have my focus on to fix this. So if you are searching for, hey, what application or what queries are behaving badly, have anti-patterns, this can be a very good addition in your toolkit. Then some others you can use. I lately had a problem where a customer didn't really know, yeah, what are my objects which are actually used, and it had a very large database and they wanted to create logging in it. And I was like, yeah, probably we can fetch something with an extended event. So I came up with the usage of modules. It says, yeah, each time it is being ended, just add it in the histogram. Histogram, yeah, we didn't really talk about it when configuring, except that it was one of the storage options. So let's look how that will look like in your result sets. So your histogram has a slightly different layout. It only has a value and a count. Okay, so let's go to properties. Let's go back to data storage. Let's go to histogram. And here I can see how I did configure it. So I am going to filter it on module end. My field will be the object ID, which is the value, and it will just do a +1 each time my module end will is being triggered, and it will do a +1 for each object. So my object ID ending with 592 has been executed 1104 times, where the last one only executed once since I enabled my module. But yeah, object IDs within your GUI, if you have thousands of them, it can be quite frustrating. So you can, for example, shred your histogram result and copy it, or see like, hey, you have this kind of events. Let me see, I had a query, and I should actually run this within my database. There it is. No, it isn't. There it is. And here, for example, I see, hey, my test procedure 5 has been executed a lot. These probably are in another database, or perhaps are even removed from our item. So I could expand my query, like what database, or join all databases with all objects, etc. But I haven't done that for now. That can be that one. Then we talked about retrieving your data from the live feed or from disk like it was previously in 2008. You still can use this. So when you are reading it from an event file, you can just use the read file. This is not possible in 2008 because 2008 didn't have the file as target. But you are still able to query it, and you can say, yeah, we have here all information in event data. So for example, my statement, my host name, my application name. My causality tracking is also being included here. So you can, if you want to, and I will share these scripts. These are on my GitHub. And I will show that one afterwards. Also, for example, you can say, hey, let's split them. I did split them here for now, but yeah, you can do your own magic with queries like this. You can see your items. Okay, then 2008, we want to see the data from the ring buffer. Sometimes we still need to work on it. Most of the times I then would use Profiler, but hey, someone wanted a script. And here we have the name, and probably I did start it. Do I have any data in it? I'm pretty messed up. Oh, my session, yes. Let's go to my data storage. Because yeah, if I am going to do something with the ring buffer, I obviously need to add it. Then run a very small workload. Just one. Of each. Then at least we have something. And tada, the data from the ring buffer. And also here, again, you see the same values like, hey, I'm going to enable it, or my queries, and any other items which are being there. And also here you can shred the XML to nice columns. Yeah, you can see it can be slow. So I prefer not to use something like this in SQL Server 2008, but it works. It works. So that's that. There are also some community tools. For example, Eric Darling has a SP Human Events, which also makes use of extended events, but in a friendlier way. You definitely should look him up. And I think I have everything I wanted to show for today, so I'm within time, I guess. Ooh. So are there any questions, remarks, anything wants to know?